Hello and welcome to Supermiata. Today we're going to look at the transmission and differential coolers on Vegas. This is our S1 Supermiata. I've got this thing lifted up in the air so it's not a great angle of it. To learn more about the Supermiata race series, go to racesupermiata.com and there you can find the rules and schedule and what have you about the series and generally what the series is all about. And that'll teach you things if you're curious about this car, what the specification is, what turbo does it run, what size exhaust, what shocks, what brakes, and what have you. RaceSupermiata.com for that sort of information. To learn more about this particular build, go to miataturbo.net and just type in Vegas and you'll see a thread. I think it's called S1 Supermiata Vegas. Tell you more details about this build. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about the car. I just wanted to talk about the diff and trans coolers here. So first I want to show you that we're using a factory Miata diff. This is an incredibly robust unit. We're making, on time attack version of this car, we're making 400 horsepower and people have run over 500 with this. It's a 7-inch ring gear. It's a factory Miata diff. They're incredibly robust. The only real weak leak seems to be there's a notch. Let's see if I can get the camera on it. It's right here. You see this little notch. It's a breakaway notch designed so if the car is hit in its street going version, it'll break away there, and that helps to absorb energy. So you basically either box this in up here or you fill in that notch, and that fixes that problem. And the other is the half shafts. When you get over a certain horsepower, 350 pounds of torque or so, you'll start to Burnell the half shaft, the tripods, and basically they kind of lock into place, and as the car goes over bumps, it'll pop the half shaft out. So if you're getting issues with your half shafts popping out, take the circlip off and try to preload it and put it back in there, and that'll usually fix it. But after a while, if you have a lot of power, you'll just basically Burnell the half shafts and they'll be they basically stop working. So we use drive shaft shop half shafts. And then the diff is pretty much bomb-proof. From there, we just want to get it to run cooler. And the diffs, in a normal HPD Miata, you'll see 240, 250 degrees. In a spec Miata, I've heard stories of 270, 280 degree diff temps. With the turbo cars, it's even above that. It's getting close to 300 degrees, which is, way too hot for a diff. You want it to last, particularly with an expensive tuned OSGeek and diff in here, like we run on the time attack car. You want to run a different trans cooler, and you want to try to keep them down around 200 degrees if you can. That's kind of a happy place. The other story, and even more important, is the AZ6 transmission. So this is made by Eisen. This is the optional transmission in the 99 to 05 Miatas. It's the 6-speed. And what's unique about this transmission is that it has aluminum shift forks, and pretty much every other car that's got a manual transmission has steel shift forks, including all of the other cars that received the AZ6. There's other cars throughout history that have gotten this transmission, and they all had steel shift forks. But the Miata had aluminum ones to try to save weight. And the problem with the aluminum shift forks is that they expand when they get hot. And something we used to see very occasionally is missed shifts in a long, hot session, even normally aspirated and occasionally forced induction. But it was really, really rare. And it would be from the shifter kind of binding, acting like it wouldn't want to go into gear. And then the transmission would call off and it would kind of free up a little bit. And it would just be this real intermittent thing. But we're starting to see more in Super Miata because we're running them in heat and longer sessions and a lot more duty cycle, basically. We're starting to see it more frequently where a driver won't be able to get it into gear. It'll just physically won't go into a gear. And then you cool off for a couple laps and then it's fine again. And it kind of comes and goes. So what we're realizing is that the transmission is just overheating. So that's the reason why we're running the trans and diff coolers. So these fittings here, this is the OEM fill, OEM drain, and this thread here is the OEM tap. And I don't know what it is, but you can just simply pull the bolt out and measure it with your thread pitch gauge and your diameter. Don't email us asking what that is. Use your tools and find out what that is, and use your Google Foo to find out what fitting is going to fit in here. We use a mandrel fitting here. There's a little bit more space than a forged fitting, which is the real short CNC'd fitting. Dash 8 push-on fittings here. And the same goes for here. You just take out the OEM plugs, measure the thread pitch and the thread diameter, and that'll tell you what size fitting to put on there. So I'm going to show you how these are routed. I'll go back up here. This is up over the PPF, and then over to the passenger side. And then underneath subframe, over the diff, and then back down to the transmission. And then, I'm sorry, that one obviously over the diff, over the subframe, and up to the bulkhead fitting. Goes up into the trunk. And then the one for the diff is similar, basically T's here, you know, a Y, and then up in here. Obviously it's not connected. This is just a little bit of insulation you put in there to keep it from rubbing on the subframe. So separate bulkhead fittings inside the frame rails for the diff and trans coolers. While we're under here, we'll peek at a few things. These are some of the OEM fuel lines that he's tapped into. These little fittings you can buy on Amazon, Russell, Jegs, what have you. It's a fitting that taps onto the OEM nipple and converts it to a -6. Go up here and look at the heat exchangers. These are little C-Trab integrated heat exchangers. They have the fans come with it. And I think this kit has a temp sensor here. You run power, but I think you can actually run these, run a temp sensor and tap into, yeah, there's an optional fitting here with the temp sensor. It'll turn the fan on and off, but we're going to run the fans from our ECU, which is, let me see if I can zoom in here and spot this. This is an AMP MS3 Pro Evo ECU, and that'll has some spare tables we can use to control the fans. So looking at the layout here, you can see this is the bulkhead fitting we saw just a moment ago, coming up to the pump, through the heat exchanger, and this is our transmission. You know, again, the fittings here. We've got the pumps mounted as low and forward as we can. These are hefty little units. These are basically designed for race cars. These are Genesis pumps. You can find these on HRP World and various other places. It's a very robust motorsports level pump, and they have little rubber mounted feet on them. So this is a noisy car, but they will reduce some of the NVH you get inside the car, so you don't have like this heavy pump, you know, thrumming through the car. They are rubber mounted. This box here, I'm going to turn the camera on here. See this box. This car, most of the fabrication of this car was done by TC Design in Sunnyvale. Or is it Milpitas? Actually, go to their website. I forget. It's tcdesignfab.com. They did the bulk of the cage work and on this, and some other work was done by Renderos Racing, including this fabulous orange paint job. Thank you, Alex. Duct here feeds the box, and then of course the fans out here. So this thing will blow a huge amount of volume of air. A lot of CFM there. And while I'm in here, I'm going to show you a few other quick things. This is our LiFePro battery with the printed nylon bracket specific to that battery. It's kind of cool. Fuel Labs 818 40 micron filter, and our 545 regulator with our return line, and then our reference line going up front. Those are two fittings, two more of those fittings I was telling you about that you can buy, -6 lines that'll plug into the OEM nipple. It makes it easy to convert it over to -6. What else? This is a temp sensor for the fire system. That's going to be attached to something. I'm not sure where. He's not sure where he's going to put that just yet, so that's a temporary. You can see our power up here for our master cutoff. There's one master cutoff here, and these are wired in series. So there's another one up front for the driver. We put this in the back, so we figured the coursework can reach it. Let's refocus here. Can reach it from either attending to the driver, or from the passenger side, or from the back. So basically, the entire back of the car, you can just do a long reach and snap that lever off. So that's why that's there. I'm going to show you the duct here for the different trans coolers. You can see kind of relative where it is in the fender well here. There's your opening. You want to put a screen in there. You'll get rocks and stuff up in there, and it could get up there and hit the damage the heat exchanger. So anyway, that's a basic overview. There's more than one way to do this, so don't necessarily call us and ask for like the links of these hoses and a template. We just sort of, like most race cars, they're built by just sort of adapting to what you have in front of you. So every car is going to be a little different. You could put these pumps somewhere else. You could put them underneath the car, maybe. This car, we have plans. We might do a diffuser, so we decided to put them in the trunk, which mounts the weight a little higher, which is not as optimum. So if you're not ever going to run a diffuser, you could run these underneath the car. Or if you had, I can't think of any transmission and diff that run the same lube in theory you could run them both in the same lube like the way a Corvette is, but I would suggest against it because in most cases they're going to run different lube, a GL4 and a GL5. Plus this car, next year we're going to switch over to OS Geek, and so it'll have the OS Geek and OS 250R fluid in it, which would pretty much destroy a transmission. So don't necessarily want to do that. But anyway, the point is that there's multiple different ways to do this. So this is just an idea to give people an idea of how important it is to have a different transcooler, why you want to do it, and just you know, some ideas on layout. Hopefully this helps some folks out there in race car land. For more information on the parts that are available on this car that we sell, that's supermiata.com, and the race series is racesupermiata.com. And we will see you at the track.